So, go back to the Zoom. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another edition of IWDM50, the road to IWDM50, IWDM50 Community Roundtable. I'm your co-host Mujahideen here with.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Marsha. So good to be back as we prepare to get ready to be together in August for the IWDM50 commemorative weekend. And so we are hosting the show to be able to get feedback and insight from various different members of our community to learn more about how Imam Wafiddin Muhammad Rahimahullah has impacted their lives and get some insight from them how they see our community going forward.
And so we are honored today to have a special guest, one of our dear friends and mentors. We have to acknowledge that, Imam Earl Al-Amin. We'll bring him on. But before we bring him on, we just want to let you all know, those who are watching, wherever you're watching us from, let us know where you're watching us from or listening to us from. And you're welcome to get your pen and pencils ready if you have any questions. Or we also want to have a dialogue. So, all right, man, he's going to come on. We have a few questions that we already sent him, and then we'll open it up, inshallah, for a general discussion. So without any further ado, I'd like to bring on Imam Earl Al-Amin from Baltimore, Maryland. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you? Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you all for something I think is very, very important as it relates to the evolution of Islam, as my first teacher used to say, in the wilderness of North America.
Yes, that language is definitely familiar to us.
Yeah, it's familiar to you. Yep.
So we're so glad to have you here. You are one of the treasures in our community, and so we always want to make sure that we highlight those significant voices in our community. So we'll start off with before we get into our first question, just give us a little context of who you are, where you're from, so that all of our viewers have that information.
I'm Imam Earl Al-Amin. I'm the resident imam at the Muslim Community Cultural Center of Baltimore. I've been the imam there, resident imam there for the last 20 years. And I am a resident of Baltimore, Maryland. More importantly, I'm a father and a husband. 3 children, grown at my age, but I'm still a father. And I'm always going to be a husband to my lovely wife, whom I've been married to for 38 years, excuse me. She straightened me out.
He's thinking in the future.
Yeah, I'm going in the future, man. Yeah.
And so our first question is, tell us your, we call it your IWDM story, right? Like, tell us your first encounter with Imam Muhammad, or your most impactful encounter with Imam Wafiddin Muhammad.
So we're going to be on here for a while, man. No, I'm just joking. Well, let me start out and give a little historical social history of myself as it relates. As a college student in the early 70s, I accepted Islam as a student at Morgan State. At the time, it was Morgan State College. And in 1975, the transition took place. And I fully did not understand the transition as it related to where we were going. So I wanted to immerse myself into where we were going. And so I started listening very, very closely to Imam Muhammad in trying to conceptualize what his vision was. And I think that in most brothers and sisters, they didn't struggle with that, but it was a transition. You were going to another stage in your evolution, your growth and development. And so I studied. I started to understand where he wanted to go, and what his vision was, but also what he placed a very, very heavy emphasis on, and that was education, culture, business, and, as I say, governance, not government, but governance. And so that's what I wanted to pursue. And then under the education and was the dawah, but more, the interfaith dialogue. My late brother and I, may Allah have mercy on his soul and grant him the highest station in paradise. We really looked at where could we make a significant impact in the city here, as well as impact our community. So we started doing a lot of work in community, which community-based things, but also professionally. Imam had, I worked where I currently am now, back again, but I was at the National Center on Institutions and Alternatives, working with young people in the juvenile justice system. And then I left and I went to work for the Baltimore Urban League, and the director of their Family and Children's Services. When the Imam said, go into NAACP, go into Urban League, take our message there. And so I was aptly following instructions. And then the next 8 years after that, I worked in the governor's office, working, monitoring the Department of Juvenile Services. And so then I came back to where I am now at the National Center on Institutions and Alternatives. But that professionally, I wanted to stay in community. And then in community, in 1988, we developed the first Rites of Passage program. These were Muslims and non-Muslims, Pan-Africanists, Christians. It was 9 brothers, and we established the first Rites of Passage program on the East Coast in 1988. And then the man was very interested in, out of that came a radio two-way talk show at Morgan State University for 13 years, the dialogue with the African-American man. And then I was for maybe 10 to 12 years the president of our neighborhood association. So all of those things, let me say, that came from Imam Muhammad, but that was a continuum of what was deposited in me from my parents. My parents were very active in community. Matter of fact, they named a park after my mother just 2 years ago. The mayor did. And so that was, it wasn't a heavy lifting for me. It was something that was in my house from the time that I was born. So it really wasn't heavy lifting. And then we had started doing a lot of interfaith work. We really got busy in interfaith work. Baltimore is the first archdiocese in North America. We understood that because growing up in Baltimore, we always had relationships with Catholics, and we always had relationships with Jews, competing athletically in a little league, a high school. So we had relationships already. And so we really started to have serious dialogue, interfaith dialogues with various faith traditions. And I mean, it was a long time coming. A lot of successes. We did a lot of invocations for mayors and their swearing in governors. We were very fortunate to do those and continue to do those. And then we one day we were at St. Mary's Seminary, and Cardinal Keeler, who had befriended us, came and said that he had a date for us. The Imam always said he wanted to meet with the Pope. So we called the Imam and told him that we got a date for you. And he said, come on now. But so we in 1996, I was part of a 5-person delegation that accompanied the Imam to Rome to meet with Pope John Paul II. That was a week-long meetings that took place with the pontifical heads of organizations, private viewing of the Sistine Chapel, the Vatican Library, and meeting people, as the Imam said, people at the table in the sky, people at the table in the sky. And so that helped to establish relationships with the Catholic community. When we were there was a luncheon that was hosted for the Imam, and with all these white folks that were behind us, and they were just smiling. And so my brother said, we got in the car, and he said, Imam, who are those white folks? He said, you talked them up. That's the Focolari. And so that was the first time that we met the Focolari. And that was in Rome. That same year, we hosted a meeting with the heads of Focolari, Julian Sabatini and Sherry Sylvie at our masjid. And when we got back, the Imam said, we should meet with these folks. And that's what helped to establish the Focolari piece. So we began to establish those types of relationships. To those interfaith relationships were really, really growing and developing. And so we saw that it started to catch on throughout the country. Everybody was doing interfaith. We started to have the Focolari relationships. And then we saw the evolution even in governance and government. When we look into the United States of America, you see that the first Muslim mayor was a man by the name of Charles Bilal in Kuntz, Texas. He was the first Muslim mayor. And then the first Muslim judge was a brother named Adam Shakur in Detroit, in our community. And then the first congressman, and we know Keith Ellison. So all of those things, as we were evolving and going into the fabric of American society, that was the vision of Imam Warithuddin Muhammad. And that was a proactive vision, I must say, as some of our colleagues that are not members of the community, they were reacting to what our proactivity was. They were responding to our stimuli. We were stimulating the environment in America. We were establishing those things that I talked about, and even the application of our culture. And so then international relationships started to take place because of the Imam. At our masjid, we have been fortunate enough over the years to have people, scholars from Al Azhar, from Uzbekistan, from Africa, from Indonesia, from Malaysia come and guest. But one of the things that we always, because a dear friend of ours, and this is a great story, his name is Imam Bashar Arafat. He's a Syrian Imam. And we started doing interfaith dialogue with him also. He was part of our little group. One day he approached us and said, would you think the Imam would be interested in sending students to Syria? And we contacted the Imam and he said, yes, under the leadership of Sheikh Ahmed Kuftaro. And so we had a series of meetings that took place. And in 1999, I think, the first students that went to Syria to study at the Abu Nur. And so not only that, but the Imam, he would always, he developed a good friendship with the Syrian Imam Bashar Arafat. And what happened was, Bashar also worked with the State Department closely, which helped to establish those international relationships. He was insistent upon bringing these delegations to the Community Cultural Center because he wanted them to understand the Islam and the African American experience. And so one of the things we had these great interactions and conversations. When we always left them, when they left us, we all gave each and every one of them a gift. And you know what that gift was that we gave them?
What's
It
that?
was a bean pie.
That's right.
So the bean pie has gone all over the world. And we've gotten responses back about the bean pie, and we gave them the history of the bean pie. And so spreading our culture and was very important to us also, and was very, very important to the imam. We wouldn't have known what to do, but you know, his vision was so influential on us. So I guess that I think that's you know, we were able to that's about it for that, I guess, to give people.
On that note, though, I mean, you right on it in regards of the impact of what Imam Muhammad shared. You were able to do all those things that you just shared and be a
Yes,
part of.
that was very impactful, very
Right.
impactful. It still is very impactful.
Sure.
You
But
know,
can you double down on the language? Like, give us like a principle or a
well,
lesson Imam Muhammad. Yeah.
I think in the dialogues that took place, there was a different language that the participants heard. It was a language that was rooted in a logic, a logic that, and a sobering logic that that really, you have to remember the time Islam was coming into America, and some people were, you know, they were apprehensive, and so
Right.
this logic and this language that was being espoused from us put them at ease. It put them at ease and allowed us to develop substantive relationships that help to improve our condition as well as their condition.
Yeah, and I think that that's such an important point when Mujahideen was asking me the question. That's the thought that I had too. That people had such a perception of the Muslim, and particularly the African American Muslim, right at that point. So to hear this language and to have it be this universal speech that was coming forth from the African American Muslim, I think it did. I think it made people feel safe,
Yeah,
and I hear you saying the same thing. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the universal language was one that we didn't put our, coming out of the first experience, we put our ethnicity before our humanity. Now, in the language that they were hearing, we were putting our humanity before our ethnicity.
Right.
And so that was in itself very, very important. And it's still very important because I still hear us referring to ourselves as Black Muslims, and we're not. We're
Right.
Muslim African Americans.
Right.
So we're Muslims first, and then we're African Americans. So
Right.
if we put our humanity before our ethnicity, then it's much more rational. It's logical. That's the logic of the Quran and the tradition of the Prophet.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point you make, and I think what you stating that we just have to make an intention to change our language in that manner to reflect the language and logic that Imam Muhammad was giving us around putting that humanity first, and then comes your ethnicity. And sometimes we do things out of habit, right? So we make our intention to be Muslim African Americans, right? Because
Yeah,
that's what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean that Black and I actually accompanied the Imam when we met with Dr. C.R. Lincoln, who coined that term in
Yeah.
1961.
Yeah.
So we're talking 1961. I was 11 years old in 1961. So, and and then he wrote the book, Black Muslims,
Mhm.
Dr. Lincoln. And so, but he understood the evolution also in the dialogues that he would have with Imam Muhammad. He saw the evolution of the community, and he really saw the importance of where the Imam was taking the community and how the Imam was taking the community. And just the mere fact of that is I mean, only Allah could have guided that. Only
Yeah.
Allah could have guided that.
So we're just gonna do a quick station identification. You are watching IWDM50 Community Roundtable. If you are just joining us, this show has been put together for the purpose of us preparing to be together August 1st to the 3rd in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as we commemorate 50 years since Imam Muhammad had come into leadership in 1975, and the impact that has come from the work, from the language, from the logic, from all of the efforts that this community has worked so hard to sustain over the years. And tonight's guest, we have with us Imam Earl Alameen out of Baltimore, Maryland.
He got some Jersey roots, though. He ain't tell you that.
Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah, I was born in New Jersey.
Okay.
I was raised in Baltimore. I was born down.
Okay.
I was born down on the Jersey Shore, down in Long Branch. And then matter of fact, we're going up for the town reunion up in. We come from a little town, Atlantic Highlands, so we're going. So we going up for the town reunion. Wasn't too many flies in the buttermilk there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we're going to go up in the latter part, right? The week before August 1st. Yep.
So later, before we took our break, you talked about how the Imam himself and his leadership evolved us out of Nation of Islam into those different iterations to Al-Islam and the universal message. Now, 50 years later, and 16 and 17 years after Imam Muhammad passing, where do you see us, our community, in the next phase or the next evolution?
I think that the community, let me put it like this. I think the community has to get away from being Imam-centric, if you understand what I'm saying. We're in the third and fourth generations. Many of our children are college graduates, have been able to distinguish themselves in the arts, the sciences, technology, the literature, healthcare, mental health industries. And so out of that, I think the first few years of this type of Imam-centric leadership needs to be dismantled in order for us to move forward, so that these people that have the expertise can come together with a synergy that will allow the community to evolve and to grow beyond what we can even imagine. Beyond what we can even imagine. And the Imam was very well aware of that, because I can even say one night, we were at Georgetown University and we had dinner. And Imam, at the time, Imam Yusuf Salim was the Imam in Washington, D.C. For 25 years, he was the Imam. Yeah. And still working hard, he is over there. But I had expressed to the Imam that I really wanted to resign. I didn't think the community was moving fast enough. And, I went on, and he looked at me, put his fork down, and started laughing. He said, Imam, you're doing great stuff. He said, keep doing what you're doing, because you're not going to see the best of this until 5 or 6 more generations down the line if we continue to do what we do. And so I don't think I'll see the best of it, but the work that we're doing is to bring forth the best of it. And that's like he said, it's going to be 4, 5, 6 generations down the line. And if we can bring those folks together that have those various skill sets as leaders, then you'll see a much more vibrant community. Because the Imam don't know everything. When I say that Imams and these Imams, we don't know everything. So we have to allow that to emerge in the masajids in order to have viable, productive community life. It'll start to leave the masjid, and it'll be and then what you will see is the new Africa starting to emerge. 6 and 7 block radiuses of neighborhoods, not just Muslims, but people that want peace, people that want a quality way of life. And you'll see the emergence of that if, in fact, we get away from this Imam-centric idea and concept that we are currently adhering to. I know that's going to be controversial, but I don't care. I can stand up.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
We're here for it.
Yeah, I can
but you
stand
make
up
an important point, because we have children that are in college now. My oldest daughter is at Howard. My middle daughter is at NYU. right? And they are, as you said, they're making their headway in their industries. And I think if we do a good job at explaining and educating them on the language and the logic that came from the work of Imam Wafiddin Muhammad, and they're able to crosswalk that to their industries, man,
Yeah. Yeah.
what will come from that? And I think about it all the time. And I'm always like looking for an extra hour or two in my day to try to do those things, because I think that's where like the secret sauce is. Crosswalking that language and logic
Right.
to whatever work it is that you do, and we're going to be amazing. I mean, I think, we've done some amazing work. When I look at the pioneers, when I look at all the work that you all have been a part of, it, you've done it. So, and you were in it. And sometimes when you're in something, you don't necessarily see like what you did. But when I look at it from my eyes, I'm like, you guys did some great things with what you had. And so as I look at our children coming forward, I'm like, they absolutely have the potential. We just have to make sure that they understand that framework and they're able to marry it to the work that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so I'm really so important that you said that. The irony is that when it didn't take it took time to develop relationships, and that was his vision to establish substantive relationships across the board, so that the children could benefit from it. So we were, in a sense, pioneers because we were pioneering into America, and we were bringing something into America that was, in a sense, very, very new, in what they call the Judeo-Christian society.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are bringing this way of life that was very distorted in their perceptions. And so bringing this logic and this language in these environments was of the utmost importance, and to allow us to have an expression to influence the environments. The Imam always said we don't want dominance, we want influence. And I think that's what distinguishes us from most Muslim communities. Muslim communities are still angry. They want dominance. We don't want dominance. We want influence. We want to influence the environment with peace. That's what we want to do. We want to influence those environments like that. And that's what his vision was. And I thank Allah all the time for allowing me to spend as much time that I could with him overseas on a few occasions, and traveling around the country on a few occasions, many occasions, to just ask certain questions that that might not be in the public address. There's certain questions that might not even be in the Ramadan sessions. It's questions that what do you think? I remember 2 years before his passing, I said, Imam, you think we should go back and start calling ourselves Bilalians again? He said, no. That was to establish Bilal and to bring the Muslim world to understand Bilal, but also to understand us and who we were. We're descendants of Bilal. And so, to be able to be in that proximity with him and to be able to have these dialogues with him, which, so, and then, so 1996, we go back to Rome in 97, 98, 99. And then in 2016, I go back and meet with Pope Francis, predicated on the work that had been done 25, 35 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're saying, Sister Marcia, this stuff it's taken off. A lot of the naysayers, oh, the communities are not this community. Oh, the community's doing great. It's doing great. It's not the best where we should be, but it's going there. It's going there. And if we do what we're supposed to do and continue to follow the Imam in the direction and his vision, then we'll be all right. We'll definitely be all right. I mean, we were having this discussion with the Muslims in Baltimore that are not in our association, but African American Muslims. And, because of the Imam's vision, we have a Muslim on the school board who ironically is from Newark. Has the same name as you, Mujahideen. The whole name. His name is Mujahideen Muhammad. No, he's Mujahid Muhammad. That's right. Mujahid. But so, with that being said, there's a lot taking place in many other cities, but we have to be in neighborhoods. We should, all of us, our congregants in the masjids should be members of their neighborhood associations, should be leading their neighborhood associations. That's what the Imam was calling us to.
Right.
If you say you got the best way of life, go out there and I always ask the question to our community every 6 weeks. If you were to leave tomorrow, this masjid, and never came back ever again, would you be missed? If in fact you were to pack up tonight and leave your neighborhood, the block that you live in, would you be missed? And these are critical questions to ask. You see? So I think,
Well, that's how we want to close it out in regards to what you just addressed, the importance of partnership and collaborations. You mentioned a few that you're engaged in. Is there some others you'd like to share with the next generation or other community organizations that we should be aware of that you see as a way us to partnership to reach our goal, our common goal?
The people that have the same vision that we have, people that want a good life, people that want a peaceful life, those people we should always we should partner with them, and we shouldn't come in begging. We should come in understanding with dignity, with our head held up high, knowing who we are, where we come from, and where we want to go. It's very important. I mean, we should be part of all of these organizations. I don't know, I still hold a membership to the Urban League and the NAACP. I'm a member. You understand? The neighborhood associations. Muslims should be on boards and commissions in every city. They should be on the school board or on the commissions. They should have a representative out of the mayor's office. All of those things that comes out of developing relationships with like-minded people, and like-minded people will support what you're doing. And then we'll see the successes coming about. So it's in closing, I would like to say though, we have to be very cognizant that we've been practicing the Quran and tradition of the Prophet for 50 years, only 50 years, right? In the scheme of things, in civilizations and societies, that's no time. That's no time. That's nothing. And look at the strides and the gains that we've made across the board in education, in culture, in business, in governance. Look at the strides that we made in 50 years of receiving the Quran and tradition of the Prophet, because the spirit was right. And the spirit was handed down to us from the ones that preceded us. And they gave us that spirit to move forward in that taqwa that we have. They gave us that. They gave us that.
Thank you for that reminder too, because sometimes we don't see it as it's only been 50 years, and sometimes we add some pressure onto like where we are, what we're doing, and why we aren't so, this far, that far. And it's like, well, it's really only been 50 years. So if you, like you said, if you compare that to other communities and how long, or we just compare it to, civilization in general, that's not a lot of time, and it has been impactful. So thank you for that reminder. We really appreciate it.
So alhamdulillah, we thank you for coming on and joining us and giving us your insight. Just a little teaser as we get ready for the IWDM50 in Philadelphia at Mashallah, the Center for Human Excellence, August 1st to the 3rd. You see on the screen, you don't see on this screen, but you'll see on that screen, IWDMcommunity.com. That's IWDMcommunity.com for all of your tickets and purchasing needs. And we ask any of you who are not able to come, maybe you can sponsor a youth, sponsor a pioneer, take out an ad. We have vending opportunities available as well. All these components of our community life, as was just expressed in this brief interview, we want to experience it this weekend in hopes that we get recentered, reconnected, recommitted, and move forward together. We're better together going forward, inshallah.
Inshallah. And yeah, and during that weekend, we'll be taking a journey through the decades. So I'm looking forward to the presentations that many of the groups have been put together. A lot of the organizations and groups in our community have come together to work on the format of this program. And so it's exciting just to be able to work together in that way, and have that be the model for what we do going forward in whatever the next 50 years are to be.
Yeah. So what? So you got next week, right?
Say it again. Oh
Next
yeah. I'll
week.
be up. Yes, sir. I'll be there. We'll be down in Baltimore, inshallah. Our family and friends down there in Baltimore. We're down there at the Muslim Community Cultural Center to do the Jummah. We're honored to be a guest khatib there. I call that my fourth home, Baltimore, maybe third home, Philly and then Newark, of course. But alhamdulillah, we thank you for always allowing us and trusting us and sharing us the insights that you share us personally as well. It definitely helps us in our development because as we're navigating through this as new leaders in this young community, we do need those who came before us to tap our shoulder to give us the insights and the guidance because we can't do it alone, inshallah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So until next time, we'll be back on live. Also, we'll be at the Mali conference this weekend.
Yes.
And we got some other events going on this weekend. So if you don't see us in your hood or your community, let us know. We're also traveling to places. We was in Philadelphia last week at the Islamic Heritage Festival to get the word out, to re-engage our community, our Muslim community. We're going to have a dynamic interfaith and intrafaith ta'aleem at this coming event. So you don't want to miss that. We have the Legacy Brunch, where we'll be hearing from the next generation of leaders, as well as a fest. This may be the first time we had a IWDM community festival.
A street fest.
A street festival live on Friday evening with our best talent, cultural talent. We know we have culture nights among ourselves, but now will be open live to the public. Anyone and everyone in the area. We say it's room for all, as Ma'am said, as long as you respect the room. So you're welcome to come hear our best and brightest talents. Until next time, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.